The alfalfa weevil versus the Russian wheat aphid. Which insect will cause the greater infestation losses?
My name is Christian, and my species is the Hypera postica, or also known as the alfalfa weevil.
Howdy, my name is Elliot, and I'm going to be talking about the Dirophis noxia, commonly known as the Russian wheat aphid.
So we're going to be analyzing which of these insects causes the greater infestation and losses, and I'm going to start with the alfalfa weevil. The alfalfa weevil is a light brown colored insect that has a dark stripe down the middle. They're typically about 3/16 of an inch long, and they're found mainly during the spring and the fall, and then during the hot summer, they stay dormant. The alfalfa weevil will lay its eggs in the fall and then also spends the winter dormant in the alfalfa plant. As an egg, they hatch within a couple of weeks, and then the larvae will come out and feed on the stems in the alfalfa weevil or alfalfa plant for a few days, and then they will slowly move up to the top of the stem and the leaves. The larvae grow for about 2 months during the late spring, and then they'll move closer to the ground. Once they're at the ground, they'll spin a cocoon around the bottom of the plant. They come out as an adult after 10 to 12 days of being in the cocoon. The adult alfalfa weevil will then start chewing on the leaves once the crop growth begins. The larvae cause most of the damage to the crop since they feed on the more central part of the plants. As the larvae grow, they will then feed on the leaves, and the leaves will begin to look like skeletons. The alfalfa weevil feeds during the day on the foliage near the leaf tips. Most of the damage occurs in the first harvest of the year, but they can also damage during regrowth. If many of the leaves are eaten, the field can begin to look gray. The weevil damage not only reduces the amount of crops produced, but also lowers the quality of the crops. The leaf loss that occurs greatly decreases the amount of protein in the crop and how digestible the crop is. One of the unique features of the alfalfa weevil is its distinct snout, and they're able to drop to the ground when they are disturbed. The way they damage plants can also be very hard to spot.
The Russian wheat aphid is a pale green and is usually around 2 millimeters long. This insect can cause significant damage to cereal crops. Compared to most aphids, the Russian wheat aphid has shorter arms, shorter antennae, and a shorter cornicle. These aphids were brought over to the USA from Russia around 1986 and are considered an invasive species. The aphid is most known for modifying the growth of the host that it feeds on. The Russian wheat aphid is known for being able to perform leaf rolling. They do this for protection and for optimal climate for their habitat. Temperatures above 25 degrees Celsius can be very fatal to the larva. The aphids lay eggs in many spots on the host and create multiple colonies on the plant. The aphids produce asexually and quickly. The eggs hatch within the days and the larvae start to feed. The larvae mature from around 9 to 55 days after molting 4 to 5 times. The aphid's favorite hosts are wheat, rye, and barley. These plants are essential to humans, and the depletion of these crops have a huge impact on human society. Also, as a larva, a reproductive adult, aphids cause noticeable damage to the host. The feeding causes purple or white longitudinal streaking on the leaves. These aphids were introduced in Texas in 1986, and by the fall of that year, infestations were reported in New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Kansas. In 1993, the annual yield loss of wheat by Russian wheat aphid was around $274 million.
Although the Russian wheat aphid causes a lot of damage to crops, the alfalfa weevil is more versatile. Since the Russian wheat aphid larvae cannot handle temperatures greater than 25 degrees Celsius, The alfalfa weevil is at an advantage during warmer temperatures. The alfalfa weevil is able to withstand a larger range of temperatures, making it a lot more active than the aphid. The damage that the alfalfa weevil causes is also a lot more difficult to spot than the damage the Russian wheat aphid creates. The damage done by the weevil is on the stem and inner parts of the leaves, which makes it hard to locate.
The alfalfa weevil is more versatile than the aphid. The weevils are not as susceptible to harsh temperatures as the aphids are. The weevils are able to reproduce and thrive during winter and fall. Although the weevils are more hardy than the aphids reproduce more rapidly. The aphids reproduce asexually and do not have as long as a life cycle. The weevil has to cocoon to become a mature adult, while the aphid just molts. The aphids spread rapidly and move from host to host faster than the weevil. The rapid reproduction of the aphid is a major factor in why the aphid creates more loss in human society.
While the aphid is able to molt instead of having to mature in a cocoon like the weevil causes more damage during the larva stage, and it also causes damage during the adult stage. The weevil is able to do damage during multiple stages, which increases the total amount of damage done. The larva stage is actually when most of the damage is done. The yield losses due to alfalfa weevils can reach up to 40%, which does not even include the crops that lose their overall quality due to these pests. The termination of weevils is also very difficult because the timing and the time of year when they are spotted has to be perfect. The farmers have to carefully exterminate the pests while trying to maintain the quality of the crops. Many of the strategies to terminate alfalfa weevils tend to hurt the crops, which only adds to more overall losses.
The weevil does more damage during the larva stage than the wheat aphid. But the biggest problem with the weevil is that it only feeds on alfalfa. This is where the aphid is more versatile because it feeds on mostly wheat, barley, and rye. These three plants are also more detrimental to society than alfalfa is. This makes the aphid a bigger problem and creates more losses to farmers and markets. The aphid spread quickly and is a parasite to important raw materials used in daily food.
Overall, the alfalfa weevil is a very damaging pest that can be found in a variety of states all over the USA, which includes Kansas, Illinois, Utah, Colorado. These species do large amounts of damage to crop yields and are also very versatile when it comes to which stages they do damage in. The alfalfa weevil is used in research by scientists and economists who want to profit off of alfalfa. Alfalfa is a crop that is necessary for livestock. It has been used as feed for livestock for hundreds of years, and it is better than other feed sources because it is so high in vitamins, minerals, and proteins. It is also consumed by humans as a herbal supplement. It is important to study alfalfa weevils to prevent the infestation that they cause. If the alfalfa weevil populations were to grow, the overall amount of alfalfa produced would decrease. This would also hurt the livestock economy since alfalfa is a main food source for many different types of livestock. If livestock production were to fall, the meat industry would also become very saturated. Alfalfa weevil prevention is a necessary subject to study to prevent the collapse of livestock in the American economy.
Because the wheat aphid has conveyed huge losses to crops, they are known in society. The Russian wheat aphid is a symbol for invasive species research. There are other species like the aphid. Scientists have studied how the aphids got here and how they adapted. They are using these studies to hopefully come up with ways to prevent the spread of invasive species and how to stop rapidly producing pests. Pests, especially the Russian wheat aphid, are important to study because they have negative externalities to humans and markets. If researchers and scientists can study pests, such as the aphids, they might be able to come up with safe ways to prevent pests without damaging crops.